Uh, so I get these spots in the stunt business where I'm, featured
Right.
and so I, really kind of took after acting in the same way I kind of took after fighting, and I started looking at that because that was kind of the next incarnation. Because also in the stunt world, if you're not going to coordinate or get into second unit directing, you kind of are stuck at it. But there's going to be an end to that, and I really love to be in film, and I love to play on camera, and so I really got into acting in that way, and that's kind of been what the last few years have been way more in my life. And
Yeah.
so I kind of got into acting through the stunt world, and I got into the motion picture business that way, and now it's progressed to where it is. And now, like I said, Keith and myself and some friends are more into the creation of it and trying to make our films that we can put out into the world.
I love it,
Because
man.
otherwise, you're playing in somebody else's sandbox. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to be able to
Right.
express your own creativity, man, what a gift to be able to do in the world.
Yeah. I was talking to Matt Vincent the other day. He's been so gracious to me, man. Like, he's gotten on a couple calls with me separate from the podcast, which we did
Yeah.
months ago. And he's just been super gracious to me. And like, one of the things he said to me is like, "Hey man, the world needs more creators." He's like, "So just keep going. Like, you're going to make a dent eventually. Just keep creating because the world needs more people like that, you know?" And that was really impactful to me. And hearing you say kind of the same thing, you know, it really resonates with me. Like, the result will come or it won't. But at the end of the day, if I'm happy doing it, then that kind of is the result.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
You know?
That's the answer. I mean, it's like in the fight world, you would see guys come in all the time, and because you see George St. Pierre under the lights, and they're like, I want that, And so then the question is how hard are you willing to work, and are you
Right.
willing to show up every day, regardless if you got broken toes or not? Are you willing to? Do you show up when you're sick? Do you show up regardless? Because your brothers need sparring partners and all that. And most people don't love it like that. They just like how that looks. And so then
Right.
the question is do you want to be a fighter or do you want to be called a fighter? And do you want to be a podcaster or do you want to be known as a podcaster?
Yeah.
Because I love the conversation or because I need the conversation to get some kind of value somewhere other than the value of what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the right answer all the time. And
Yep.
inside of that thing grows, whatever that is grows. And I think, when I was talking earlier, when we were talking about early life and all that, there's the idea of people want to guide you into a thing of like, do something that you have, something that you can count on, because it's fucking a dark, scary world sometimes. And, want something that you can count on at the end of the week. And then if not, you got to shake your own tree and make sure a check comes out at the end of the week in one way or another. And how's
Got to
that,
pay the
how's
bills
that
one way
look,
or
right?
another. Yeah.
But what nobody tells you, man, everybody goes, oh, the odds on this are 1,000,000 to 1. They love to say that. People love saying that. It's 1,000,000 to 1 to do that. Oh, you want to be a SEAL? That's 1,000,000 to 1. You can't do that. You want to be a master chief? You know how many? You know how few there are. You can't do that. And they don't tell you why, because most people quit.
Yeah.
It's not that folks are built resilient. It's that they have a
Yeah.
weak fucking mind and they
Yep.
quit. And so if you just build resilience and you go, I'm determined to not quit, whatever it is that you're in love with doing, that thing will shine. And I
Right.
really believe that with my whole heart because I've seen it. I mean, guys that weren't supposed to be skateboarding that then become Jason Ellis or whatever, and people that that are professional skateboarders, guys that they played video games. Who are some of the highest paid sports people in the world are video game players.
Talking esports, yeah.
I mean, it's like and so really literally whatever it is that you have an interest in, man, fall in love with that thing and do that thing to the tilt. And
right.
then even if that's not the thing that it is, that thing will dovetail into the next thing you're going to do. And it'll weave a perfect life for you. And the downside to not doing that is 20 years goes by and maybe you bought yourself a life you didn't really want.
Right.
And,
Yep.
and that's not something that you want to sit with. People talk about midlife crises and all that shit all the time. Well, that's, I think, a great deal of what that is. I was living somebody else's idea of what a safe life looked like. And then I got to a point where I'm at the end of that road and I'm like, this wasn't satisfying in the way that they sold me the idea at all. And
even if it's super successful,
all of
it
it.
cannot be satisfying.
Yeah.
Right.
All of it. Like
Right.
us. Yeah. And inside of that, we make choices. And I don't think there's wrong choices. There's what you do. And then you live that thing with a passion.
Yeah.
And if you can't, well, you got to course adjust. My
Yeah.
coach would always say, you got to have a plan. 100% you got to have a plan.
Yeah.
But you 100% have to be willing to abandon the plan. You know what I mean? And alter
Sure,
the
man.
course of that plan. It just is what it is.
Hey, you guys come here. Come say hi.
Yeah.
My daughter, man. I want you. Well, one of them's my daughter, one of them's not. I'll let you guess which one's mine and which one's not. So this is Hazel, and
Hi,
this
how
is
are you?
Avery.
Avery, Hazel, how are you? Nice to meet you both.
She's mine.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right on.
Anyways, yeah. So this is Tait, Tait
Good to
Fletcher.
meet you both.
Yeah. So, all right. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Beautiful,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Good kids, man. I'm lucky. But yeah, I mean, you have to be willing to abandon the plan, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah.
I've experienced that a lot. We in the military, we have this saying, and you've probably heard it too, right? Like, the best laid plans don't survive first contact with the enemy. And that is the fucking truth, man. Like, you can nuke out every single detail of your engagement plan, but like, inevitably shit's going to go sideways.
Yeah.
And so you have to have secondary and tertiary plans, but sometimes you just got to throw the book out. You're like, all right, well, none of this is fucking working. So
Yeah.
what are we going to do now? And I think that applies in life.
One of my bros, he was teaching guys up in Alaska how to fly helicopters. And that's what he did for like 20 years of his service, and he would say there's old helicopter pilots and there's crazy helicopter pilots, but there's no old crazy helicopter pilots. And
yeah.
And he would say, everybody I've ever trained, I give a checklist, and there's 5 things on that checklist or whatever. And if 3 of those things happen, you scrub the mission. Like, you go back. I thought, man, because to call something off on what seems like a hunch, that's some chutzpah to do that,
Yeah.
But how necessary that is, you've got lives at stake, and that's just what it is. So I think the way I love the way the military reacts to stuff, because when you learn that stuff, it's like, here's people at the highest consequential level there is of people's lives at stake. And to see how they course in that kind of a way is a fascinating educational way to look at life.
Yeah. I want to ask you about this, Tait, because it's I think, topic is TBI. And so I think the collective, we have heard a lot about that via the NFL specifically, professional sports, but the NFL, right? And then in the military, we talk about it a lot too. And I think that so many TBIs go undiagnosed. Like for me, for example, I was doing pull-ups. We had a pitching deck. We were underway on USS McCampbell, and I was doing pull-ups, and we took a roll, and I mean, I basically slammed into the overhead. I was out for several seconds, 10 staples, and you know what I did? I went back to work, right?
Yeah.
And I just think it's one of those things that we don't talk about, and so I wish you would share kind of like what happened with you and how it impacted you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, they call it a hidden injury, right?
Yeah.
And it's very real. And the hard part about it is it's manifest in like your character. It alters folks in ways, you become short with people, or you become different, and families notice it, and maybe coworkers might notice it, but it's largely silent. And the other thing that is strange about it is that it grows. You can hurt yourself, and that can have impacts that you don't know about for 10 years. And so I've had a tremendous amount of head injury in my life, and I never knew that. I think the first time I was like privy to like a head injury was after a stick fight, and I got clipped, and I went down, and I flashed out for a second, and then I was able to come back and perform. But for the month after that, when I would train jiu-jitsu or anything, I would if I were on my back, I would just get bed spins like I was hammered, and that lasted about a month or so. And I guess that was a concussion, and people are always like, oh, you go to the hospital, and see if you got a concussion. They can't tell you. Nobody knows anything about any of that. If you get, soccer players are killing themselves over post-concussive syndrome, over TBIs, because
Absolutely.
they head soccer
They,
balls,
yep.
which doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's an injury, right?
Right.
When I talk to guys that are in the teams and they talk about the boats, boom, boom, boom,
Boom,
every one of
boom,
those is an
boom.
injury. Every
Yep.
one of those measures is an injury. We're shooting pistols, especially if you're indoors. Those are all injuries. You watch anybody that's in an armored vehicle and they hit an IED. Everybody in there is injured, and everybody just wears it. We walk with it, right? Because it's not
Yep.
always followed by post-concussive syndrome, but it's always followed by damage later on. I mean, there's one famous year that I think it was the San Diego Chargers won the Super Bowl, and like 8 of their linemen shot themselves in the chest that year. It's like, and the NFL didn't even cop to that head injuries were a part of their sport until like 2015 or something like
Right.
that. It's insane. So we're fraught with injuries, and everybody's got some. Mine happened. The last one that was most significant happened for me on a movie called Free Guy in 2019. There was zero recourse for the film. They checked me for brain fractures and brain bleeds, and then they go, good to go.
You
And
good.
by the next day, I didn't understand how to pack my suitcase. I didn't understand. I couldn't. Normal things evaded me, and that was like the next 4 years of my life was like that. Deep sobbing, suicide around the corner all the time. Light hurt, sounds hurt. I couldn't participate in life. I couldn't go to a grocery store. I never knew anxiety before that. I thought it was made up. I didn't understand people that had, and then I was just fraught with it. My girlfriend at the time, Lacey Mackey, she, did everything she could to be trying to save my life. And so I flew back from Boston to, recording continues smoothly. Live video will return when the internet improves.
You're
So
good, bro. You're good.
I got into like hyperbaric chambers due to that, and so that started to help a little bit. But I was drooling, I was stuttering, I had neurogenic tremors, and I just figured I was going to be homeless at best, and I didn't think I'd ever be able to participate in life again. And so I've been through several brain injury clinics since that time, and everything that I do in my life is towards healing myself and treating myself. When I was saying earlier about people that, one of the biggest things we can give to people is that they feel valued and they feel loved. And I didn't have that for myself for a long time. I wasn't a fan, and I just figured to just get after it and be useful. That was my workaround for a lack of concern about myself. And I've had to learn how to do that in the last year, and I've had to learn how to value myself and walk accordingly in the last year or so, and that hadn't come till then. But my mom at one point, she said, I'm so glad that you got hurt. And I go, you got to tell me more, Mom. And she says, well,
do tell.
For the last 10 years or so, I've been watching you darken and you harden and you become not yourself. And I just started sobbing. I go, Mom, it felt like a black cloud was coming behind me for that whole time, and I just couldn't put a finger on it. And I wanted to kill myself ever since then. And because you become a thing that you don't recognize anymore.
Yeah.
You don't recognize yourself anymore, and you got to go. It's too much weight to carry. And I can't really explain it better than that. But if there's guys that are in that position, I understand. And it's a really real thing. And I destroyed everything good in my life in that I pushed everybody away. I fractured relationships, and I became another thing because I didn't think that anybody else needed to carry the weight of me either. And
Right.
And so I just wanted to go away, and I isolated. And maybe that's one of the worst things you can do. I don't know. I had a couple of buddies that were on me, and that would pull me out of it. They put me in clinics, and they got me towards healing. And so now every day that I do it, everything is based on that. I've done magnetic healing, like where they shoot magnets in your head. I've done NAD. I've done hundreds of hours of hyperbarics, stem cells, everything. My friends down at Chipsa Hospital, they do stem cells in the spine now, where you can bypass the blood-brain barrier, and you can get real help that way. And they've got great success with that. And, there's guys I know that at Ambio is a place where a group called VETS, Veterans Exploitation Treatment Solutions, is a nonprofit where they're sending guys that are war fighters that are at the end, and the end is a terribly terrifying place, and they're going down and getting ibogaine treatments and restructuring their brains. And Stanford's done studies on those to show when they went before, the week before, and then the week after, and they're showing very different brain patterns where they can't find the injuries anymore. It's fascinating stuff. And so everything is just on the cutting edge of that, but you can't get help in Western culture. I went to the doctor here that Disney put me to, and they go, take fish oil, and if you're not better in 6 months or 8 months, come on back and we'll give you Alzheimer's medicine. And I go, you're telling me to kill myself?
Yeah, fuck
off. Are you not interested
in
any of these other things? And they go, that's not what we do. And that's just the answer that I found everywhere in Western medicine. So I guess I'm here to just say there is help out there. There's a way beyond your hopelessness. And hopelessness ain't real. It feels real. And it can feel real, but there's other spaces out there you can live in, and healing is possible, and restructuring and reintegration into life is possible. And I'm just finding that out.
Yeah, I'll tell you, bro. I do think, I'll say this, the VA and like veteran care gets a lot of flack, deservedly so. But there's two areas that we do a pretty fucking good job, relative, I think, to the rest of society, and one of those is TBI, because we've just had so much experience with it based on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, via IEDs and things like that.
Yeah.
The other one I think that we do a pretty good job at is post-traumatic stress disorder. But I think that the next step is, and I got linked up with Heroic Hearts Project. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. So Heroic Hearts Project is a nonprofit that is led by, he's a retired Army Ranger, and they are doing ayahuasca retreats for veterans with PTSD. And they are in Peru, and they also are associated with MAPS, to try to explore psychedelic treatment, whether it's ibogaine or other modalities for TBI and things like that. And I'll tell you, man, it's just, our society is in such a fucked up place where we look at those things as being on the fringe when they've been around for thousands of years before these chemicals that we decide that we
and it's the only curative thing there is. But if you don't have something that's going to feed big pharma, they're not interested. They want you strung out on whatever it is, and that's 100%. This is all a money grab. America is a money grab, and the people that are in charge that are telling you what to do are there to enslave you, and that's 100% what it is. I mean, you're here, in service to our country and our freedom, as you're watching them stripped away in this very corrosive internal way. It's insane.
It is.
And so, I mean, those things are, I know so many guys that have been strung out on VA drugs and shit like that. All they give me is bottles of pills. And then that they can't get off the pills because the pills weave their way in so magically. These goddamn big pharma tech fucking scientists, that to get off them, you go into a terror and you just can't.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then the other aspect with the guys in the military that I know, they're like, I could never say I had depression or something like that, because the minute I say it, I lose my command. Because they can't put me back in the field saying, oh, you knew this guy had trouble with his mind? And so there's that kind of that onus that's over it, that you can't really get help because you're out of a job if you do. And so to bring normalcy and conversation, this is sure something I would like to do.
I think that
I see guys that are doing that and running campaigns for it, and I fully support that. And I know one of my friends that Drake Whitestomp, he's running a benefit at the Grand Ole Opry for veterans that are suffering from this and trying to raise money for that. I mean, everybody afflicted that's gotten better from brain injuries, I don't know one of us that doesn't want to just help everybody that's coming behind us. And, and then maybe that thing, they talk about sometimes your greatest fractures are your greatest assets in helping those in front of And maybe that's what this injury is for me. I don't know, but I sure hope to be useful in that way, because it sure can feel alone.
I'll tell you, man, I think that you sharing your story, I listened to the podcast that you did with Matt, and of all the things that really stood out, you got a great story, obviously, and you've got a fantastic perspective. And, you drink La Croix, I drink bubbly. I mean, you must be an all right guy. You know what I mean? So, but one of the things that stood out in that episode that you did with him was, this same conversation, which is very openly speaking about your struggle with all of the things that came as a result of a lifetime of traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
And, for you to be able to stand up and do that from your perch, from your standpoint, is really huge, man. Because a lot of people don't want to fucking talk about it, man. A lot of people don't want to talk about it because it makes people uncomfortable. It makes them uncomfortable to talk about trauma and about healing, and it runs counterintuitive to some of the things that people want to, express as men.
It's like talking, somebody real close to me dying of cancer, walking to her death, and everybody around her shrunk from the conversation. Oh, it's a really nice day out. I'm going to go down to the dry cleaners today. And then, we had a birthday party for, Sonia's grandson. And while this lady that helped raise me is just looking like she's vacant. And I go, and, I just come in, and this other woman's leaving. I go, well, what's wrong, Mom? What's going on? And she goes, I'm scared. And I go, yeah, I bet you are. And I go, what are you scared of most? And she said, I'm scared that I'm not going to see how it turns out for you kids. Wow. And I go, well, I said, I think you're at a threshold where you're going to walk into another universe, and we don't know what that looks like. And at that point, Mrs. Masrum's like, I'm out. We'll see you next time, because nobody wants to have a conversation about death.
Right. Yeah.
But maybe that's the most fascinating trip that we're yet to take. I mean, this life is so mysteriously magical in its own right. Well, why would death be different almost in a way?
Yeah.
And I said, I think you become everything when you walk over that threshold. And I think you'll know us more in that realm than you'll ever know us here. And I think you'll be free of this pain. And I think you'll become everything. And I think you'll go into that God field like that they talk about in your Catholic church. They talk about that Holy Spirit. I think you become all souls. And I think you're unified in your power in that. And I think that's what happens.
That's so
she
cool.
Goes, well,
man.
I like that. I go, well, fuck, it's as good as any other story you've been hearing for the last 70 years, Take it.
Yeah. Yeah. The Buddhist faith, it's very interesting. I'll tell you, man, like so I was raised Mormon, by the way.
Yeah.
And then spent so much time in Japan that I've kind of opened my mind to Buddhist faith. And I've always had this firm belief that there's something, whether it's God, the universe, there's something that is intelligent design, that's a creator, that's something. But I digress. The thing that they talk about is that, after you pass, that you do, become part of everything, but that there are specific times when you're allowed to regain that consciousness that you had in that life and visit your descendants. And so like,
wow.
Like, so for instance, man, I'll break it. Like I would tell you the whole story, but I'll keep it short. So I've got an urn sitting over here that's got the remains of my Maltese that died when he was 15, because that's Japanese tradition, right? It's this beautiful little urn, and we have a little, shrine that we keep to him. And my wife and I were talking, and like next week is like, there's like a 5-day period that the Buddhist faith believes that, our loved ones are able to come visit us. And she was like, I wonder if Kim will come see us, or if he'll go see his previous owners, because we got him from like from a shelter, and he lived his like older years with us. I was like, man, he's coming to see us. He was so spoiled with us. Like, are you kidding me? Of course he's coming here, And it's not like a ghost is coming to like haunt the house. It's that form of your ancestor or of your loved one gets to return and be with you in spirit, right? And that's such a beautiful idea. I don't know if it's true. I don't care.
Yeah.
I like thinking about it, and it makes me feel joy to think about it,
Yeah. I think there's something in there that we're immortal.
Yeah.
I believe that. I believe that those that we love and those that love us stain us so beautifully that they live through us, and their words and their ideas and their principles, they come out. I mean, I have a hard time thinking of people as being past, as being gone, because they're
Right.
so with me still. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Holy
And
shit, dude.
yeah, man.
You're really keying into something. So I'll share something else with you, man. So like in 2021, am I getting this right? No, in 2020, my brother passed away. Fentanyl overdose, same thing, right?
Yep.
Started with Oxycontin back in 1996. They yanked him off of it, and he was an addict until his
Yeah.
last day, basically, right? And then the following year, my dad passed. So you're back to back. And I was telling my wife this, and I don't know really how to describe it, but I think that you just kind of put it in a way that I've thought about it. It's like I absorbed some part of them after they died.
Yeah, man.
Like I look in the mirror and I look more like my brother and my dad now than I see them like more now than when they were alive. It's almost like I absorbed like part of their spirit or something, right? And it's
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that to people except that I just you just feel it that way, right?
Yep.
And it's a beautiful thing. It doesn't make me feel bad. Like it's beautiful,
Yep.
So, anyways, I just thought I'd share that with
I
you.
think it all matters. I think it matters more than we ever could think. That simple thing of loving each other in that way. I think it matters and it holds us.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's lovely, man.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for appreciate you letting me share that with you, man. Like that was
Yeah.
not that was not on the agenda. You know what I mean?
That's why I love this. I love this.
Yeah,
I love the conversation.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Good
thank
shit.
you.
Yeah. Hey, man. All right. So, I do want to talk about how fucking cool is it to be part of the Star Wars universe? Like, let's just be real about it.
Right.
Like, how dope
Yeah.
is
It's
that, man?
that's all magic.
Yeah.
And also like couldn't have gotten there. Couldn't have, like, it's just it's a thing where I was just trying to do the next job. I was at one of these things where they do signings at these Comic Cons and stuff. And, a couple years ago I was there and I've got all these pictures of, Equalizer and John Wick and Breaking Bad. And like,
Yeah.
it's a bunch, it's all that. And this guy comes up, he goes, "Man, you've really built an awesome career here." And I
Yeah.
go, "A career? I never thought of it like that." Because
Right.
I was just always trying to get the next job,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is like you do what you love and all of a sudden you're a master of craft in some way of whatever that, you know what I mean? Whatever that thing is. And I don't know that until retrospect, until in the rearview mirror kind of. But yeah, that universe in particular, it's super special. It's a super dope thing to be a part of, and
Yeah.
it's a weird. It's cool to be in like the renaissance of it, where it's kind of like recapturing the grandeur of it all, where it
Yeah.
kind of
Like
maybe
the
got
joy of it.
smoky and lost it a little bit back in the day. But
Mm-hmm.
because I grew up on the first three, which
Right.
were just amazing for me. And then, after all that and the Han Solo, and I just I got lost in all that. I wasn't super interested. But for me, this resurgence of like a Boba Fett type story, I was like, God
Yeah.
damn, I want to know more about that.
I want to know more. Tell me
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah. It's been a special thing. And again, the most special part of it has just been the folks that I've gotten to be with throughout that, and
Yeah.
it's a family that goes on in that world, and that kind of pervasive. We worked a long time on those shows together, and so I see some of the guys. I just saw JJ Dashnaw, who ran the stunt program for Boba Fett and Mando and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I saw him on a Peter Berg movie out here in Santa Fe, and it's dope to see people that are that excellent, that are doing their thing, and to be able to behold that. Like I watched that guy do stuff that I'd never seen before, like
Yeah.
where he's doubling a guy, he's directing the episode, and he's directing another 13 people or something that were also in this fight all together, and he's watching it, giving cues, going back into it, like incredible. I've never seen anything like that. And it's the kind of thing where it's like you work at speeds like that with people that are that good, and you raise your ability to a higher level than you were before. You know, you get a little rub off of their excellence, and you get a little better in that way when they expect greatness from you.
For
And
sure.
and that was, and one of the great things for me too is like I look at faith again in it, and I go, man, I couldn't have made this happen, but like I was at a time where I was really hurt, and I didn't
Yeah.
think I was ever going to work again. And then I get
Right.
this job where they got me a stunt double. And like, so I'm an actor on this job. And then I
Right.
was like, and all I can do, man, all this shit, like I could look at all the fractures. I could look at, I had a stroke in October. Fuck, like it's been crazy the last couple of years. And all I can go is look what God did. Look what God did
Yeah.
again. God did, like, I can't hurt myself again. I got a stunt double. Look what God did. A guy tells me, I go, hey man, I really want to get better at acting. How do I get better at acting? How do I get to be really the best at it? How do we really move towards that? And I asked Vincent D'Onofrio and I asked Chris Pratt, separate occasions. They both said the same horrible answer to me. They said, there's really no course you can take. There's not like a method. There's not this or that. The only way you really get better is to work on film with a director that lets you play. And that you can, that's the place it shows up, where you get the
Right.
reps in. And that makes sense to me. You get reps
Yeah.
under consequence, that builds, right? That,
Yep.
know that for sure, right?
Yep. For sure.
And I go, fuck. And you go, yeah, it's a horrible answer because you can't contrive that situation really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then I get this job where I get to play on camera for 8 months doing this job and spitting these lines, and I get to fuck around with it. And I go, look what God did again. He brought the very
100%.
thing, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
So yeah, Star Wars is cool and all that, but like the whole thing for me is like, how do you get better self-development? And you just show up to do a good job, and then you go, look what else showed up. Like a thing that put me in the best position to get as good as and
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing is like it's these unexpected things. What I'm most grateful for is the awareness of seeing that. It's nothing I did. It's nothing that like any of that. But I'm glad I'm aware to be available for the occurrence of it, for it all to happen.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I
Yeah.
can see it. I've walked through
Yeah.
a lot of life with blinders on, anyways, yeah, it's been cool.
No, I get it, man. I like this idea that I'm becoming more and more convinced with that if you just approach life from a perspective of abundance, right? And that's kind of a cliche thing to say these days, right? But until you actually see it happening, right? Until you see like that next thing, like, hey man, I showed up, I did just like you said, I showed up, I did my thing, I did the best I could, and magically, but it's not magic, the next thing will show up. And I love that idea, man. And I've seen it manifest
It's
itself, which is
almost
nice.
mechanical. When you
Yep.
really put feet to it, it's like it looks magical, it looks miraculous, but it's almost mechanical. It's like, yeah, of course that would happen. What you pay attention to grows. If I pay attention, if I pay attention to my depression, it's insurmountable. If I pay attention to making your life brighter, my depression can die of neglect. It's like it's like where I put my focus really matters, and I have jurisprudence over that. I have agency over that. That's not something somebody else can take away or give me. And so I'd see it with my friends. I'd see it with people that are like, a lady told me early on when I was trying to change my life. She goes, "A victim will never recover, Tate. A victim will never recover. If you're always pointing a finger at somebody, so what? They could be wrong 1,000%, but that's not going to change your circumstance. You got to take full responsibility for how you got in that position. And if you don't do that, you'll never grow." And so I just had great people that kind of showed me the way that was just sustainable truth. Like this is just what it is. It's not open for debate. It's not any of that. This is function and performance. And that's what it is. And so it really taught me about like how to mind your mind in a better way and like, and put yourself in the best position for that. And that's looking at it from a place of abundance. One of the best compliments I ever got, pardon me, I got to get my power cord on.
Yeah.
Just recently, man, there's dogs and kids, and they just read vibe. They don't have language. They read the vibe of how you feel, right? What it feels. Is it safe around them? Is it, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my black belt's kids is like 5 years old, 4 years old. And she tells her mom, she goes, I really like being around him. Oh, why? Because he plays with the fire trucks with you, or like what? She goes, I don't know. I just like how he feels to be around. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's the thing, because especially for a guy that was looking to not feel good to be around for a long time, like I had a vested interest in that's how I would protect myself. To come around to a place where a child can be like, no, it just feels safe and nice and feels good to be
Yeah.
around. Like that's, and it's like these things we were talking about at the beginning. It's full circle of like, it's a different
Right.
time in my life. And those other ways, they were appropriate at the time, but they don't serve me anymore. And I think
Right.
that's the thing of growing as a man of how do I let go of these old ideas, recognize them as old ideas, not as truths. They're not truths to live my life by. They're old ideas of what seemed the best way at the time. Now it's time to let those go and change and grow. And I think that's the whole purpose of me. It's not to build a business. It's not to do this or that. It's to develop myself, to develop my character to the best of my ability in those four
Yeah.
aspects: intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And if I'm bereft in those ways, man, I'm falling short of the mark. And I'm certainly falling short of the mark of all the people that helped me when I was nothing, that I want to be proud that they helped me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I love it, bro. Hey, so let's get ready to wrap it up if you're okay with that,
Yeah.
Tate.
Yeah. Totally, man.
I do have to ask you a pretty serious question though.
Okay.
Um, did you name the dog yet?
Well, today has been Frankie. It's been Frankie Blue. My mom's calling him. It was just calling him Blue because of his
Uh-huh.
blue eye. And I go, I don't think I could just call him Blue, but Frankie seemed good. I was calling him Freddie because my friend Freddie, who's my friend Antonia's dad, he's 72, and he lives with me, but he's back fixing up his kid's boxing gym. Uh, it's called Mad City Boxing out in L.A. And so he's had to change places, so he's out there doing that. But he's helping me renovate this duplex. And so I was calling him Freddie because I just missed Freddie for a while. But then I'm like, Freddie ain't gonna like it if he comes back here and there's a dog named Freddie. And so I went to Frankie. But
Yeah.
it beats the hell out of dog, you know.
Yeah,
I
man.
tell you what, though, a
Yeah.
horrible story. I got a video of it too. I won't show you, but so he's got a cage, and he got out of the cage, and it just smells like shit when I walked into the house. And he had
Oh
two
no.
piles that were on the floor, and I go, well, thank God he got out of the cage at least. And then I had all my
Yeah.
clean laundry on my bed, and there was another 6 piles. He was so sick, the poor boy. And so I had to take
Poor
everything
guy.
out and spray it off in the driveway and all that when I got
Yeah.
home. And
Yeah.
he's feeling a lot better now, but
Yeah.
my boy was real sick for a while. But
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, man. I'll tell you, I am a firm believer that specifically dogs just make our lives better, man.
Yeah.
They just make our lives better.
Yep.
There's something about them, like I think that we evolved together. I mean, we
Yep.
did, but I think that there's like a deep, like we're probably more closely connected them based on our evolution and their evolution than any other animal
Yeah.
in the world, like even closer than people sometimes in a sense.
Totally. I mean, I spent more time with Hank than I spent with anybody else, right? And Hank knew how I felt just because
Yep.
of that vibe, right? He knew me like, I mean, and we were telepathic. It's just I mean, he died when he was 16 years old. We were together for a long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
But they gave me gifts, dogs give me gifts that I didn't know I needed. They give me lessons that I had no idea were
Right.
things. You know what I mean?
Right.
I agree with you,
Right.
man. There's a
Yeah. For sure.
supernatural thing out there when we buy into life in a deeper way.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure, man. All right. Hey, Tate, man, just let me say thank you again for agreeing to come on the Rising
Oh
Sun
yeah, man.
podcast. It's been a
I'm glad
great
we worked it
conversation.
out
I
with the
knew,
geographic difference and everything else.
yeah, man. I mean, you got to love this about technology is that like you can connect with somebody across the world and have a very meaningful conversation, even though we're not in the same room, man.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Well, I hope we can have supper one day. And thanks a lot for having me, dude. It's a pleasure.
For sure, man. If I'm back in the States, I will 100% let
Please
you
do.
know and we'll link up, man. So anyways, thanks again, Tate. Hey, for everybody listening, I appreciate you listening to the Rising Sun podcast. And I just want you to keep rising. Take
Thank
care,
you. And
guys.
thanks for your service, brother. It matters.
Thank you. Thank you, Tate.
Yeah. All right. Good night.